So just to recap yesterday, I watched most of the games. I watched about 2 periods of the Tampa game, the first and the third, and then I watched a majority of the Jets game. I just missed a third of the Jets game, so I filled myself in on what happened in that game. Crazy finish to that game. I watched the Pittsburgh-New York game as well. Great to get back into it and really start watching hockey again. Playoff hockey was in full force yesterday. The first period of the Tampa game I watched. It did not look good for Columbus early. That is a tough name to say. Bobrovsky, man alive, gave Sergei Bobrovsky. Man, that's a tough name. Just a beast, Bobrovsky. Sergei Bobrovsky had a really bad first period. The whole team had a pretty poor first period. Then I caught the third period, and you saw a surge of energy throughout that whole period for Columbus. They took a double minor late in the game, and they ended up tying the game on that double minor, shorthanded with an unbelievable goal by Savard. I've heard a few different perspectives on what they thought happened in the game. Oh man, Tampa really blew it. They were really overconfident. And I don't think that's what happened. If you watch the game back, you can even watch condensed versions of the game, of any hockey game on the NHL app. If you watch the game back, Tampa had a lot of really good chances, and they were playing really well still. But Columbus just totally brought it to them, and Sergei Bobrovsky really pulled it together within the second and the third period and robbed them cold multiple times. So really, really good game. Columbus came back from a 3-0 deficit to win 4-3. Amazing game. Probably the most competitive game of the night, though, the Pittsburgh and the New York game. In my opinion, there was times where New York made it look like they were the number one team in that series, and then there was times where Pittsburgh made it look that way, and they were making things look easy. Ultimately, in that series, I do think that I'm gonna stick with my guns, and I think Pittsburgh's gonna take it. But New York looks really strong, so we'd never know what's gonna happen there. Winnipeg blew the lead late. I think they had some opportunities, but with St. Louis's goalie Bennington, the guy's unbelievable. He makes things look so easy, so effortless, and I think he's going to be a huge key in that series if he can continue playing like that. I do think that that series is going to go 7 games still, but man, some of the saves he was making, just go back and watch those highlights. They're unreal. So for today, we got 3 games on deck. We have the Calgary Flames against the Colorado Avalanche. We have the Boston Bruins against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we have the Carolina Hurricanes against the Washington Capitals. The first one I want to touch on, I do think it's going to be a relatively easy series. Washington's record is a decent record since January, but you look at Carolina's record since January, it's fantastic. The Washington Capitals have a record of 24-14-5 since January, and the Carolina Hurricanes have a great record of 30-12-0 since January. I don't think that's going to play any factors in this series. I think Washington's going to be able to take it to Carolina for the most part. I think maybe early on Carolina will show some signs of hope and some signs of making the series seem a bit longer. But I'm still going to stick with my guns and say that Washington is going to win this series. I'm going to give this one to the Capitals 4-1. I think that the overall experience, the depth of Washington, the goaltending, are going to be huge factors in that series, and I don't think it's going to be an overall challenge for the Capitals. I'm not taking anything away from Carolina. Obviously, they're a great team. The Capitals in the playoffs, just think that they're going to be able to make it happen and push deep into the playoffs this year as well. On to the next series. We have the Calgary Flames against the Colorado Avalanche. The Calgary Flames have a record of 26-13-3 since January, and the Colorado Avalanche have a record of 19-17-6 since January. This is kind of a funny series. Like, I've asked a lot of Flames fans what they think is going to happen, and a lot of them aren't saying it's going to be like a sweep. Nobody's saying it's going to be a sweep, actually. Most people are giving Colorado a lot of credit, and if we look at their records, I think that speaks volumes. Like, Colorado has a rotten record, especially since January. What my overall prediction for this series is, I think that Calgary is going to take a little bit of time to get into the groove of things, but I think later in the series is where they're going to really shine. I still think that Colorado is going to win a few games, but I think in the end, Calgary is going to be able to pull it off. In my opinion, I think Colorado is going to give them some problems early, but in the end, Calgary is going to take it. Game 6, Calgary wins the series 4-2. Now for this last one, the Boston Bruins have a record of 28-10-2 since January. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a record of 20-17-6 since January. If you watch this video and you know me, it's obvious who I prefer. I really don't like the Leafs. It's one of the biggest rivalries in sports. But because I started doing this and I want to look at all the variables that could happen in a series, oh man, I don't think Toronto. I guess I just don't think within the last bit they have spots where they shine, but I don't think that I don't think the team meshes extremely well. They have their moments for sure, but I just think overall as a team, Boston is a better team. And I don't want to take anything away from Toronto. You look at their top, if you look at their lines from top to bottom, first, second, third, fourth offensive lines, they look really, really good. But I just don't think that they're going to be able to mesh together in a 7-game series enough to take out Boston. Bruins in 6. Now, for this one, I also wanted to bring in a little bit of a different mind. A little bit of history of why I'm a Bruins fan. My father has been a Bruins fan since the mid-'60s, when he was just a little guy. And when I started watching hockey, it would have been 2007. That's when I started watching hockey, and all that was around was Boston Bruin hockey. If Arizona Coyote hockey was around, that's the team I would have followed, because it was just because of my dad. That's simply the only reason. With that being said, my dad is one of the smartest hockey minds that I know personally. Honestly, I probably don't go to him enough for information, but he knows so much on players, on stats. He's not overly biased. We'll have our moments where, this team's crap, that team's crap. But if I have an honest question, he's always giving an honest answer on what could happen, knowing that anything could happen. So I just want to make a quick phone call, and I think this can really bring some insight into what could happen in this series between the Leafs either winning this series or the Bruins either winning this series. So let's hop into that right now. Hey, Dad. So, Dad, I'm going to go through a little bit of Bruins history here, and then I have a question for you. So in the last time that Toronto beat Boston in a playoff series was in the year of 58-59. It was the 58-59 season. Other than that, in 68-69, that would have been the first Boston and Toronto series that you would have witnessed.
That was like 8 or 9.
Yeah. So that series was won by Boston 4-0, including the huge losses of 10-0 and 7-0. Boston, 71-72, the year they won the Cup. They won the series 4-1. Boston 73-74. The Bruins won the series 4-0. 2013, that was the year of the Game 7 historic comeback. 15 minutes left, Boston down 4-1. They came back and tied it and won in overtime. That series was finished in Game 7. Boston won 4-3. And then in the 17-18 season, that was last year, super close series. We saw another Game 7 between the teams. Toronto played a pretty poor Game 7. Boston played a pretty solid Game 7. Ended up closing that series out. Boston wins the series 4-3. So my first question for you is, how much do you think that history, that's dating back way, way back. How much do you think that history, does that have anything to do with this series coming into this series of the year 18-19?
Not really. Maybe a little bit last year, because Toronto led 4-3 after 2 and Boston scored 4 in a row. Maybe there's a little bit of frustration on Toronto's behalf. But no, I think there's a lot of same players, but I think they're both better, and both better this year. Boston's fourth line's a real pain in the neck. They're always, going after the puck. And Toronto's got Tavares this year, so it's a little different than they got Jake Muzzin.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the history has too much to do with it. Like, we're dating back to the 70s and the 60s. So, okay, my next question for you is, just give me a brief description on what you think could happen this year. And so, give me an idea. Like, who do you think is going to win this series, and why do you think they're going to win this series coming up?
Well, I guess 2 theories. If Boston plays the way they can with the first line, we know they score, and the fourth line, and I think they got DeBrusk and Krejci in the second line. And Rask holds up in goal if he's not daydreaming. In 6 games, I think, for Boston, if Toronto moves the puck onto their end fast and their defense plays better, because we know they can score. There's going to be scoring in that series, so then I think Toronto has a chance in 7. And I think that's the way I look at it. I think it's going to be a pretty rough series, too. I think my first pick would be Boston in 6 games this year. I don't think it's going to go 7. That would be my real first pick. And, of course, the other one, if Toronto plays, a certain way, maybe they'll push to 7.
Okay, cool. I completely agree. Actually, I picked Boston in 6 as well. Awesome, Dad. Thank you for answering those questions for me today.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Just a few games on deck today. I'll do this series again for the round 2, round 3, and then the Cup final. But even if the Bruins get eliminated, I still want to do this series. I still want to give my thoughts and see if there's a conversation out there that can be created from this. Regardless, I really enjoy making these videos. That's why I'm making these videos. It's something that, not necessarily is the biggest video series on YouTube that people do, but I just enjoy doing stuff like this. I love hockey. I'm not the smartest hockey mind out there, but I like sharing my opinion and seeing what kind of conversation can get started. Thank you for taking the time and watching this video. Be sure to like this video if it's something that you enjoyed. Comment below if there's something in these games that you think could happen differently than I think, and we can kind of start a conversation from there. Subscribe to my channel, and we will see you guys in the next video.